Hello and welcome to Journey Through Time, the channel where we explore the biggest questions about our planet and our place in the universe. In today's video, we're going to travel far beyond ordinary history. We'll dive deep into the hidden layers of Earth's past and ask a bold question. Could another civilization have existed here long before us? So ancient that the planet itself has almost erased every trace. If you enjoy thinking about lost worlds, science, and the mysteries of time, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next exploration. Long before the first human cities rose, before myths were carved into stone, Earth had already turned countless times. Mountains rose and crumbled, oceans opened and closed, climates warmed and froze. In the scale of geological time, everything human is a thin and recent line. Yet within that line, curiosity emerges, a question whispered across generations. Could there have been others before us? Not visitors from the stars, not legends of sunken continents, but an actual civilization born of this planet, so ancient that the Earth itself has nearly erased every trace. To ask this is to step outside history and into deep time. We are used to thinking in decades or centuries, maybe millennia, but the crust beneath our feet records billions of years. It records mass extinctions, sudden upheavals, and long recoveries. It records the slow drift of continents and the rise and fall of sea levels. And it records, however faintly, the activities of life. In that record we find fossils, isotopes, and sediments, the diary of a restless world. But a diary has gaps. The Earth is a poor archivist, erasing far more than it preserves. Fossilization is rare, artifacts rarer still. Wood decays, metal corrodes, stone weathers, and even entire ocean floors are recycled into the mantle. If an advanced culture had existed 50 or 100 million years ago, what would be left? Perhaps nothing obvious. Perhaps only subtle chemical signatures or anomalies we have not yet learned to recognize. This is why the question matters. It's not about indulging fantasies, but about testing the limits of our methods. If we cannot detect ourselves in the deep future, how can we claim we would detect another? If our own industrial age leaves only a thin, ambiguous layer after a few million years, what hope do we have of finding one from 100 million years ago? The very act of asking shifts our perspective. We stop seeing humanity as the inevitable center of history and start seeing it as one possible phase in a much longer experiment. We stop assuming permanence and start appreciating how fragile knowledge is. And we begin to think not only about what we can discover, but also about what we can leave behind for whoever comes next. As we move deeper into today's video, let's look at why finding an ancient civilization would be so difficult. We tend to imagine lost cities, or gigantic monuments hidden under jungles or oceans, waiting to be discovered. But in reality, over millions of years, Earth is relentless. It reshapes and recycles everything. Our idea of civilization is based on our own experience: cities, writing, machines. But another intelligent species could have been organized completely differently, leaving behind signs we don't yet know how to read. Even among humans, some societies built monuments that lasted millennia, while others left almost nothing visible at all. Intelligence doesn't always announce itself with stone pyramids. Earth's forces make the search even harder. Over geological time, continents drift, coasts drown, and mountain ranges rise and vanish. Volcanoes erupt, glaciers grind, deserts migrate, rivers change course. These processes erase coastlines and bury habitats. The ocean floor itself is constantly replaced. Its average age is only about 200 million years. Any civilization near ancient coasts could now be under thousands of meters of rock or melted into the mantle. Even on land, nothing is truly permanent. Mountains rise and erode, sediment accumulates and compresses, ice ages scrape landscapes clean. A city buried under ash or landslide might survive a few millennia, but over millions of years, it would be crushed, metamorphosed, or dissolved. Without extraordinary conditions, its remains would blend into the background noise of geology. That's why scientists who seriously consider this possibility focus on indirect signatures rather than artifacts. This is the heart of the Silurian hypothesis. Look for sudden changes in carbon isotopes, synthetic compounds unknown in nature, unusual metal concentrations, or patterns of extinction and recovery inconsistent with natural processes. These traces can endure long after physical structures vanish. Yet natural events can mimic many of these effects. Volcanoes, methane releases, and asteroid impacts can all produce anomalies similar to industrial activity. Even nuclear signatures occur naturally in rare places. Distinguishing industry from nature is difficult, especially without context. Still, thinking this way refines our tools and calibrates our expectations. It also forces us to think about our own future detectability. Our plastics, alloys, and isotopic footprints may last for millions of years. But whether future beings interpret them correctly is another question. Now let's go one step further. Once we realize how little survives across deep time, the image of hidden cities fades and a new picture emerges. We're detectives arriving at a crime scene millions of years after it happened. We must infer from absence as much as from presence. This also means rethinking technology itself. We often equate progress with huge infrastructure, but real technology is about control of energy and information. A civilization could be advanced, yet almost invisible, if it built with biodegradable materials, used small-scale devices, or operated in ways that blended into natural cycles. Its footprint might be a delicate signal rather than a bold monument. Even in our own world we see analogies. A termite mound looks like a simple hill of dirt, but contains elaborate architecture. Scale that up and bury it for a few million years, and you'd mistake it for a natural formation. Similarly, an advanced species might integrate so seamlessly with its environment that we'd see only nature, not artifice. Time scale compounds the problem. Even a million years is enough for continents to shift, sea levels to rise, and entire ecosystems to transform. An intelligent species could flourish and vanish entirely between two layers of sediment we never sample. Our geological record is not a continuous movie, but a sparse set of still frames with huge gaps in between. Yet this realization can be inspiring. It shows how extraordinary it is that we can read any of Earth's past at all. From tiny fossils and isotopic whispers, we've reconstructed the rise of oxygen, the extinction of dinosaurs, the migration of ice ages. With more effort and imagination, we may yet detect subtler signals of complexity. Most of all, this perspective encourages humility. It reminds us that our place in time is provisional, and that the future's view of us will be partial and distorted. It challenges our vanity and our fear of oblivion, and it encourages us to act as good ancestors, to leave behind not just ruins, but clues, not just data, but stories, not just footprints, but pathways of understanding. Let's continue our journey. By now, we've seen how Earth erases physical structures, and how a civilization could leave only the faintest traces. In this part of the video, we'll explore what kinds of signatures might actually endure, and how scientists think about detecting them. When fossils come to mind, People often imagine perfectly preserved skeletons in museum displays, but real fossils are fragmentary and rare. Fossilization itself is an exception, the outcome of a precise chain of events. If that's true for bones, it's even more true for tools, buildings, and technology. Metals corrode, fabrics rot, plastics break down. Even stone artifacts are hard to interpret without context. This is why geologists and astrobiologists emphasize indirect signals. Rather than expecting intact artifacts, they look for chemical changes, unusual isotopes, or distinctive layers in sediments. These are the geological fingerprints of processes, and some can survive for millions of years. Industrial civilization, for example, changes the carbon cycle, deposits synthetic compounds, and spreads heavy metals far and wide. But natural processes can imitate these signals. Massive volcanic eruptions, methane releases, and asteroid impacts can all produce sudden spikes in greenhouse gases or trace metals. Even unusual isotopes can arise from cosmic events or rare natural reactors. The challenge is to tell whether a given anomaly is industrial or natural. One approach is to look for combinations. A single anomaly may be natural, but a pattern of anomalies, synchronized, global, and chemically linked, might be harder to explain without intentional activity. Another is to develop better models of how synthetic materials degrade over millions of years. Knowing how plastics, ceramics, or alloys behave under deep burial conditions can help us identify their remnants. Thinking this way also sharpens our understanding of ourselves. If future beings drilled a core sample millions of years from now, what would they see? A sharp spike in carbon dioxide, a thin layer of plastic particles, odd isotopes from nuclear tests, a sudden extinction of species followed by a new mix of survivors. They might not know who we were, but they would know something unusual happened. This perspective reframes the Anthropocene, our current epoch of human impact, as a geologic event, not just a social one. It invites us to imagine how our moment will appear in deep time and what lessons a distant investigator might draw from it. It also hints at how intelligence itself might be detected on exoplanets, by looking for planetary-scale anomalies rather than obvious monuments. Ultimately, this part of our video underscores a core message. Permanence is rare, but patterns endure. If we learn to read those patterns, we may glimpse not only our own future, but echoes of whoever might have come before. In this next part of the video, let's take our perspective even deeper. If artifacts and bones are unlikely to survive, what about the planet's chemistry? Civilizations transform their environment, and those transformations can outlast buildings and tools. One obvious marker is the carbon cycle. Industrial civilization burns fossil fuels, releasing vast amounts of carbon dioxide. This shifts the ratio of carbon isotopes in a way that could remain detectable for millions of years. Another is nitrogen from fertilizers, which leaves its own chemical fingerprint. Add to this microplastics in ocean sediments, heavy metals from mining, and radioactive isotopes from nuclear activity. Altogether, they form a planetary-scale signature. But natural processes can mimic or erase these signals. Volcanoes also release carbon dioxide. Lightning and microbes alter nitrogen cycles. Cosmic rays create radioactive isotopes. Certain minerals resemble synthetic polymers. So, if we find an ancient anomaly, we have to decide, was it industrial or natural? That's a hard call without multiple lines of evidence. Earth's own history contains several puzzling events. About 56 million years ago, during the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, the planet underwent abrupt global warming and massive carbon release. Scientists debate its cause. volcanic eruptions, methane release, an asteroid impact, or something else. Some even joke it could be a fingerprint of an earlier civilization, though there's no evidence for that. The point is that large chemical shifts can occur naturally and look ambiguous in the record. Another example is the rise of oxygen billions of years ago. Microbes transformed Earth's atmosphere, leaving iron-rich deposits that still line ancient rocks. No one planned this. It was a byproduct of life. This reminds us that big changes don't always mean intelligent actors. Life itself can reshape a planet dramatically, without intention. That's why scientists emphasize patterns and context. A single spike may be natural. A synchronized cluster of anomalies might suggest something else. By refining dating methods, sampling more sites, and modeling how materials behave under different conditions, we improve our chances of telling one from the other. Thinking this way also affects our view of exoplanets. If it's hard to recognize our own signal here on Earth, it's even harder across light years. We may have to rely on atmospheric analysis, looking for gases or heat signatures inconsistent with known natural processes. Earth's deep past becomes our training ground for detecting alien technosignatures. In short, this part of our journey shows that if intelligence leaves a mark, it's likely chemical, global, and subtle. Not a monument, but a fingerprint in the planet itself. Learning to read those fingerprints could reveal not only our future, but also hidden chapters of our past. As we move further in this video, let's explore how civilizations might adapt, or even disappear, without leaving obvious signs. We tend to picture progress as endless expansion and ever larger footprints. But what if intelligence trends toward efficiency, minimalism, and dematerialization? Already we see this shift in our own world. Data moves from physical media to the cloud. Factories shrink even as output grows. Energy use becomes more efficient. Infrastructure becomes less visible. Push this trend far enough, and you can imagine an advanced civilization whose physical footprint is tiny compared to ours, yet whose knowledge and capabilities far exceed our own. Such a society might build structures no larger than grains of sand, powered by ambient energy and distributed invisibly. It might manipulate ecosystems rather than construct megacities. It might encode its culture in DNA or other resilient molecules instead of steel or silicon. From a geological perspective, it could last millennia while leaving almost no trace. We must also consider time windows. Even 1,000,000 years, a blink in geological terms, is vast for a species. A civilization could rise and fall entirely between two layers of sediment. Without continuous sampling, we might never detect it. Our drilling covers only a small fraction of Earth's surface. Huge areas remain unexplored. This leads to a humbling question. If intelligence can arise multiple times, but leave little behind, how could we ever know? Our current absence of evidence might say more about the planet's erasing power and our limited sampling than about actual history. Yet thinking this way isn't futile. It sharpens our understanding of what might survive. Isotopic shifts, rare materials, genetic markers. It encourages us to search in unexpected places, deep ice cores, ancient sediments, or even off-world archives like the Moon or Mars, where erosion is minimal. And it reframes our own future. If we wish to be remembered, we must plan accordingly. Not just monuments, but information stored in durable forms and multiple locations. If we wish to be sustainable, we must learn from the possibility that intelligence can coexist quietly with its environment rather than overpower it. Ultimately, this part of our video reminds us that progress may not mean bigger, louder, or more obvious. It may mean subtler, smarter, and more harmonious. And that kind of progress is harder to erase, but also harder to detect. In this section, let's focus on what Earth's own history can teach us. Our planet has seen massive transformations long before humans appeared. Ice ages came and went, continents collided, oceans dried up. Through it all, life adapted, diversified, and sometimes flourished in unexpected ways. These shifts highlight a key point. Intelligence is not guaranteed. Life existed for billions of years before complex organisms arose. Complex organisms existed for hundreds of millions of years before tool-using intelligence appeared. The conditions for civilization may be rare and fleeting. At the same time, life is resilient. Microbes survived asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, and mass extinctions. After each crisis, ecosystems reorganized and new forms emerged. If intelligence arises more than once, it might follow a similar pattern: disappear, reappear, transform. We could be one iteration in a long, mostly hidden experiment. Understanding this helps us refine our search. We shouldn't expect a single moment of firsts, but a spectrum of attempts, successes, and collapses. We should look for cycles rather than spikes, long arcs rather than isolated anomalies. It also changes how we think about our own civilization. We're accustomed to imagining endless progress, but deep time suggests impermanence. Our industrial age may be an episode, not a destiny. Our challenge is to decide whether we want to be a brief flare or a sustained glow. Practical implications follow. We can invest in robust knowledge storage, ecological stewardship, and off-world archives. We can design societies that prioritize resilience over exploitation. We can treat our technological choices as geological acts, with consequences measured not in years, but in millennia. This approach also informs our search for extraterrestrial intelligence. If civilizations tend to burn brightly and fade quickly, we may find more ruins than signals. We may need to train ourselves to read ghost signatures, subtle planetary imprints, rather than obvious beacons. By thinking this way, we practice a new kind of archaeology, not of stones and bones, but of systems and cycles. We train ourselves to see intelligence as a phase, not a pinnacle, and to recognize our own moment as part of a much larger story. As our exploration continues, let's look at how the idea of hidden civilizations can shape the way we think about the future. Up to now, we've focused on detecting the past, but the same logic applies to what comes next. If we want to endure or to be understood, what kind of traces should we leave? The first lesson is that durability and visibility are not the same. A huge monument may erode faster than a small chemical change. A digital archive on the cloud may vanish, but an etched disk in a stable environment may last for millennia. Knowledge stored redundantly in many forms and locations has a better chance of surviving. The second lesson is that context matters. Without a shared frame of reference, even a preserved artifact can be meaningless. Think of the Rosetta Stone. It was crucial because it linked languages. Future beings might find our data, but have no way to decode it unless we leave clues. That's why some projects focus on universal symbols, star maps, or mathematical constants. Third, we should recognize that our most lasting legacy may not be physical at all. It may be the changes we make to Earth's systems, the isotopic signatures, the redistributed elements, the new compounds. These will persist long after our buildings crumble. They may be our only introduction to distant investigators. We can already see how this perspective influences real projects. The Svalbard Seed Vault stores genetic diversity in an Arctic mountain. Long-term time capsules carry data etched into sapphire. Spacecraft like Voyager and Pioneer carry golden records beyond the solar system. All of these are attempts to bridge deep time, to speak across ages. But even these efforts are humble compared to geological forces. Ice sheets advance and retreat, mountains rise and wear down, and asteroids continue to strike. Nothing on Earth is truly permanent. That's why some thinkers suggest putting archives off-world, on the Moon or Mars, where erosion is minimal and tectonics absent. Ultimately, though, the point isn't just to be remembered. It's to cultivate a mindset of stewardship. To act now as if someone will one day read our layer and judge us by it. This can lead us to more sustainable choices, more durable records, and more humility in the face of time. By imagining how we might look from the future, we become better custodians of the present. We learn to measure our actions, not just in years, but in millennia. And in doing so, we fulfill the same curiosity that led us to ask whether someone came before us. The desire to connect across the gulf of time. As we enter the final segment of this chapter of our video, let's step back and see the bigger picture. Our journey began with a simple but bold question. Could another civilization have risen and vanished on Earth long before us? Along the way, we've uncovered insights not only about the past, but also about ourselves and our future. We've seen that the geological record is vast, yet incomplete. It preserves incredible detail about some things while erasing others entirely. Fossils and isotopes give us snapshots of ancient oceans, climates, and creatures, but they're still only fragments of a much larger story. Expecting to find clear evidence of an ancient industrial society is like expecting to find a whole book when only a few pages remain. We've also learned that technology and intelligence can take forms very different from our own. A species could be highly advanced, but physically subtle, using biodegradable materials, small-scale devices, or integrated ecosystems, rather than obvious machines. It could operate in ways that mimic natural processes, leaving behind no unmistakable footprint. This understanding changes how we see our own time. We're not the inevitable center of history, but one expression of a longer experiment. Our industrial age, powerful as it seems, is a brief flare against billions of years. Knowing this can humble us, but also inspire us to act with more care, to build more resiliently, to plan for horizons beyond our own lives. It also changes how we search for others. We must look for subtle, planetary-scale signals rather than dramatic monuments. We must refine our tools, collect more data, and remain open to possibilities we haven't yet imagined. Our efforts to detect technosignatures on exoplanets already reflect this shift, focusing on atmospheric compositions and waste heat rather than giant structures. And finally, this exploration has offered a new kind of hope. If intelligence has arisen before, it could arise again. If civilizations can vanish, they can also return in new forms. If the universe produces curiosity once, it can produce it again. This perspective connects us to a larger story, one that may stretch across epochs, species, and worlds. In this part of the video, we've moved from mystery to meaning. Whether or not there were predecessors, we have the power now to shape our own legacy. We can decide what kind of ancestors we'll be. We can decide what traces we'll leave, not just for the next generation, but for whoever might drill a core sample millions of years from now and wonder who we were. Welcome to the next part of our video. After exploring the evidence, the erasure, and the subtle traces, it's time to talk about what all this means for us right now. We've been looking backward into unimaginable spans of time, but deep time also speaks to our future. The first lesson is about perspective. When we see our civilization against billions of years, we stop assuming permanence. We start thinking in terms of stewardship rather than ownership. We realize that our technologies, our cities, even our ideas are temporary guests on a restless planet. This realization can change how we design, build, and govern. The second lesson is about detectability. If we want to be visible to the future, we need to plan for it. That might mean archiving knowledge in multiple durable forms. It might mean placing records off-world where tectonics and erosion cannot reach. It might mean using universal symbols or mathematical constants that future beings can understand. The third lesson is about responsibility. Knowing how easily the planet erases history, we can't rely on monuments alone. Our most enduring legacy may be the state of Earth itself, the health of its biosphere, the diversity of its life, the balance of its cycles. These are the true records we'll leave behind. This perspective can also bring comfort. If our mistakes leave scars, they may also heal. Earth has endured asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, and mass extinctions. It has a remarkable capacity for renewal. Understanding this resilience can guide us to work with planetary systems rather than against them, to think in terms of restoration and regeneration rather than extraction. Another implication is cultural. Thinking in deep time can inspire art, literature, and public imagination. It can teach patience in politics and policy. It can help us plan for threats that unfold over centuries rather than election cycles. It can turn our attention from short-term wins to long-term stability. Finally, deep time offers a new kind of hope. We may not be the first, but we are here now. We may not last forever, but intelligence itself may endure. If we treat curiosity, empathy, and stewardship as our highest technologies, they may echo beyond us, shaping new minds and new worlds. In this way, the question we started with, could there have been another civilization before us, becomes more than a mystery. It becomes a guide, a lens for seeing ourselves, and a call to act with care. Whether or not anyone came before, we can choose to be worthy ancestors for whoever might come after. As we go deeper into our story, let's turn our gaze outward and upward. So far, we've asked whether an earlier civilization could have existed here on Earth. But the methods and mindsets we've explored also apply to the search for life beyond our planet. If it's hard to detect our own presence after a few million years, it's far harder to detect someone else across light years. This means we need to develop new ways of thinking. Instead of waiting for obvious signals, radio transmissions, giant structures, or city lights, we might look for planetary-scale fingerprints, changes in atmospheres, chemical imbalances, waste heat, or other anomalies inconsistent with natural processes. Earth's deep past becomes our training ground. By studying how life and intelligence have reshaped our own world, we build models for recognizing similar reshaping elsewhere. Our industrial age, with its carbon spikes and synthetic compounds, is a case study in technosignatures. If we can see ourselves clearly, we can refine our expectations for what alien civilizations might look like. This approach also encourages patience. The stars are not waiting for us to find them. They are simply there. Signals may be faint, slow, or disguised. Civilizations may flare briefly and then vanish, leaving behind only ghostly imprints in planetary spectra. Detecting such echoes requires long-term observation, sophisticated modeling, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. At the same time, thinking this way can renew our sense of wonder. We're not just looking for others. We're exploring the conditions under which mind itself emerges. We're testing the idea that intelligence is not an anomaly, but a recurring outcome of complex systems. and we're placing ourselves in a cosmic narrative that stretches far beyond human history. This cosmic context can shape our ethics as well. If we're potentially the only intelligent beings in reach, our duty to preserve life and knowledge increases. If we're one of many, our duty to understand and connect broadens. Either way, the stakes are high. Ultimately, by blending geology, astronomy, and imagination, we're developing a new science of the possible, a way of thinking that spans epochs and light years. And even if we never find definitive proof, the search itself enriches us. It trains us to see subtler patterns, to hold larger timescales in mind, and to feel kinship with the unknown. So, as we move toward the final chapters of our video, remember, this isn't just a story about the past. It's also a story about the future, and about our place in a universe that may be full of echoes, waiting for us to listen. As we move into the final stretch of our video, let's bring together everything we've learned. We began with a mystery. Could another civilization have existed on Earth long before us? And we've built an entire framework of thinking that spans geology, biology, and the search for life beyond our planet. One of the biggest takeaways is that deep time changes everything. It compresses empires into thin layers and stretches events into geological eras. It erases monuments, yet preserves tiny traces. It hides much but reveals patterns for those who learn how to read them. When we shift our view from centuries to millions of years, our assumptions about permanence and uniqueness dissolve. Another takeaway is about humility. We are not at the center of time, but part of a much longer experiment. Our industrial age, powerful as it seems, is a blink compared to Earth's history. This awareness can guide us toward sustainability, empathy, and stewardship. It can inspire us to leave behind not just artifacts, but conditions, thriving ecosystems, durable archives, resilient cultures that support whoever or whatever comes next. This way of thinking also reframes our ethics. If we imagine ourselves as potential ancestors rather than final products, our choices change. We plan for redundancy, we preserve diversity, we invest in resilience. We stop asking how to be remembered and start asking how to be helpful to the future. It also reframes our search for others. Instead of looking for monumental evidence, we search for subtle planetary signatures. Instead of expecting conversation, we expect echoes. Instead of assuming intelligence looks like us, we imagine forms we haven't yet seen. This humility makes us better scientists and better dreamers. And perhaps most importantly, deep time invites us to see ourselves in context. We are one expression of the universe's capacity to know itself. We are temporary, but meaningful. Our curiosity, our science, our art. These are not trivial accidents, but the universe noticing its own patterns through us. So as we come to the end of this chapter, remember that the question, "Were we the first?" may never have a final answer. But asking it has already transformed us. It has expanded our timescale, sharpened our science, and deepened our empathy. It has turned a speculative idea into a guide for how to live and how to look for life elsewhere. Whether or not anyone came before, we have the opportunity now to act as good ancestors, to build durable knowledge, to nurture our planet, and to imagine futures beyond our own. That, ultimately, may be the legacy that endures, not our monuments, but our mindset. As we begin this next section of our video, let's imagine the far future. Picture a time millions of years from now when continents have shifted again, oceans have redrawn the map, and new mountain ranges have risen. Ice ages have come and gone. Species have evolved, flourished, and vanished. In that distant world, Some curious beings drill into a rock core and discover a strange layer, rich in synthetic particles, altered isotopes, and odd compounds. They wouldn't know our languages or our myths. They wouldn't recognize our cities or our devices. But they would know something happened. A sudden burst of change in the planet's chemistry, a thin but unmistakable signature of an unusual event. They might speculate about a vanished people, invent myths, or build scientific models to explain it. We would be their mystery, just as lost civilizations are ours. This thought experiment is more than fantasy. It's a mirror for our own behavior. It forces us to ask what we're really leaving behind, and whether we want our signature to be a scar or a gift. It encourages us to think in planetary terms, to see our industrial activities not just as economic or technological, but as geological acts. It also underscores how much context matters. Without context, signals can be misread. A future geologist might attribute our carbon spike to volcanism, our plastics to unusual sediments, our radioisotopes to cosmic events. Even a clear anomaly can be ambiguous if no one knows how to interpret it. This is why some scientists and futurists advocate building Rosetta Stones for the future. Records that explain our records, keys to decode our knowledge, universal symbols etched into durable materials. Others propose seeding off-world archives to ensure survival beyond Earth's cycles. All of these ideas stem from the same impulse, to be understood across time. But beyond archives and signals lies something deeper, the attitude of stewardship. If we see ourselves as part of a planetary continuum, our priorities shift. We start valuing long-term resilience over short-term gain, diversity over uniformity, knowledge over novelty. We start designing our technologies not only for efficiency, but for recoverability and transparency. This mindset could be our most enduring legacy. Even if our monuments vanish, our way of thinking, interdisciplinary, humble, curious, could influence future minds, human or otherwise. By practicing it now, we plant seeds of understanding that may sprout in forms we cannot yet imagine. In this way, the question, could another civilization have existed before us, becomes a tool for imagining how to build a civilization worthy of being found. It's not just about the past. It's about a new standard for the future. As we move further, let's focus on how this way of thinking can influence our daily choices. We often treat the future as something distant and vague, but deep time shows us it's as real as the past. By imagining ourselves as future fossils, we can change how we act today. This part of our video is about responsibility. Every building we construct, every material we use, every emission we release is a kind of geological inscription. It will persist in some form, as sediments, as isotopes, as subtle shifts in ecosystems. Thinking this way can help us design with longevity, recyclability, and reversibility in mind. It also reframes education. Instead of teaching only short-term problem solving, we could teach deep-time thinking as a skill. We could ask students to imagine the state of the world in 1,000 years, or even 1,000,000. We could train future leaders to plan beyond election cycles, to value resilience and diversity as planetary assets. On a personal level, this perspective can be grounding. It shrinks petty worries and expands our sense of connection. When you hold a stone older than life itself, your problems feel smaller, but also more meaningful. You see yourself as part of a continuum, stretching backward and forward. And on a cultural level, it can inspire new art, new stories, and new rituals. We can create narratives that honor cycles rather than endings, stewardship rather than domination, continuity rather than conquest. Such narratives can shape behavior just as powerfully as laws. Ultimately, deep time thinking is a tool. It doesn't tell us exactly what to do, but it changes the kinds of questions we ask and the scale on which we ask them. And sometimes a change in question is the most powerful change of all. In this segment, let's imagine how future beings might see us. We often assume our monuments will speak for us, but more likely our influence will be measured in chemistry, biology, and geology. They'll read our layer like a palimpsest, not a library. Think of what they might find: a sudden spike in carbon dioxide, traces of synthetic polymers in ocean sediments, unusual isotopes from nuclear testing, extinct species replaced by invasive ones, and metals redistributed in strange patterns. Each clue would be faint and ambiguous, but together they would form a portrait of a planet in upheaval. They might speculate about our intentions. Did we self-destruct? Did we evolve into something else? Did we leave for the stars? They might never know our answers, but they'd know our impact. We'd be their Silurians, their lost civilization. This perspective can also shape our ethics now. Knowing how we might be misread, we can try to make our layer a testament to resilience rather than ruin. We can restore ecosystems, sequester carbon, clean our oceans, and design technologies that degrade harmlessly or signal their artificiality clearly. We can also invest in communication across time. This could mean placing clear keys alongside our archives, using universal math or physics as translation tools, or seeding redundant records in multiple environments. We can make sure our story isn't just a puzzle, but a message. Most importantly, we can cultivate a mindset of humility and curiosity. Instead of seeing ourselves as the end of history, we can see ourselves as part of an ongoing experiment in intelligence. We can choose to be worthy ancestors, not perfect, but thoughtful, creative, and aware. Now let's explore what this journey means for our sense of meaning. At first glance, the idea that everything vanishes may seem depressing, but deep time also shows resilience, renewal, and emergence. Life persists, patterns recur, intelligence reappears. Seeing ourselves against this backdrop can actually deepen our purpose. If nothing is permanent, then each moment matters even more. Our science, our art, our relationships become precious precisely because they're temporary. Our responsibility to care for our world increases because its memory is fragile. This shift can also free us from arrogance. We no longer have to be the pinnacle, only good participants. We no longer have to win history, only to contribute meaningfully. We can judge success not by dominance, but by stewardship and creativity, and it can inspire us to innovate in new directions. If physical monuments won't last, maybe we focus on resilient knowledge systems. If industrial footprints vanish, maybe we focus on adaptive ecosystems. If languages fade, maybe we encode messages in universal constants. Deep time also helps us appreciate the small. A single microbe can change a planet. A single isotope can tell a story. A single decision can echo across centuries. Seeing the vastness can make our actions humble, but not trivial. Like writing in sand at low tide, knowing the wave will come, but writing anyway. In the end, this part of our video invites you to see deep time not as a threat, but as an invitation. An invitation to wonder, to care, and to act. To build not just for now, but for whatever comes next. To leave behind not only traces, but patterns of curiosity and kindness that can re-emerge even after erasure. We're now reaching a turning point in our video. Up until now, we've been looking mostly at the traces of the past. But deep time also lets us imagine entirely new futures. If intelligence has arisen before, it might arise again. If civilizations can vanish, they can also return in new forms. This means we're part of a much larger story than the one we usually tell. Think about the arc of life on Earth, from single-celled organisms to complex animals, from forests of giant ferns to flowering plants, from reptiles ruling the land to mammals emerging after an extinction. Change is not a line, but a spiral, revisiting themes with variation. Intelligence could follow the same pattern, not a singular miracle, but a recurring motif. This perspective shifts our goals. Instead of striving for permanence, we might strive for continuity of possibility. Instead of hoarding knowledge, we might design it to be rediscovered or reinvented. Instead of fearing the end, we might focus on seeding beginnings. It also changes how we interpret our own impact. We're not just altering the planet, we're leaving an experiment for whoever comes next. Our atmosphere, our sediments, our genomes, all will carry information forward, whether we intend it or not. By making that information richer and clearer, we offer a gift rather than a puzzle. And perhaps most importantly, it gives us humility without despair. We can accept our impermanence while still acting with purpose. We can be small in time, but large in care. We can be transient, yet transformative, like a flash of lightning illuminating a dark landscape. In this way, deep time thinking becomes more than science. It becomes a philosophy and an ethic. It invites us to live in a way that honors both past and future, both known and unknown. It turns the question of hidden civilizations into a meditation on how to be visible in the best sense. Visible as stewards, not just as consumers. As we continue, let's look at the human side of this story. We're drawn to mysteries of lost worlds, Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, not just because they might be real, but because they speak to our longing for continuity. They give us a sense of being part of something larger, older, and enduring. The scientific version of that longing is what we've been doing throughout this video. Instead of legends, we have isotopes. Instead of myths, we have cores and spectra. But the impulse is the same: to connect across time, to feel kinship with unknown minds, to imagine we're not alone in our curiosity. This impulse can inspire powerful creativity. It can lead to new hypotheses, new methods, and even new technologies. Some of our greatest scientific revolutions began as speculative ideas. Thinking about hidden civilizations may seem fanciful, but it stretches our minds to consider what's possible. And sometimes, those possibilities become real research agendas. At the same time, speculation must be disciplined. We must resist the temptation to turn every anomaly into proof or every mystery into myth. We must embrace uncertainty without surrendering to it. We must let the data guide us, but also let imagination widen our field of view. This balance between rigor and wonder is at the heart of science. It's also at the heart of being human. We're pattern seekers and storytellers. We're also skeptics and experimenters. Deep time gives both sides room to play, and through that play, we learn to see ourselves differently. We're not just a species with smartphones. We're a species capable of reading rocks, oceans, and stars as though they were pages in a cosmic book. We're a species capable of imagining minds we've never met. We're a species capable of planting ideas we may never see bloom. In this way, the mystery of hidden civilizations becomes a mirror for our own potential. It invites us to become better scientists, better stewards, and better ancestors. As we approach the end of this long journey, it's time to bring our ideas together. The question, could there have been someone before us, has carried us through geology, chemistry, astronomy, and philosophy. Now we can see the outlines of a bigger lesson. First, deep time shows us impermanence. Nothing on Earth is fixed. Continents drift, oceans rise and fall, species appear and vanish. Even the hardest stone eventually erodes. Against that backdrop, survival itself is remarkable. Second, deep time shows us resilience. Life has endured asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, and ice ages. Patterns emerge, adapt, and continue. Intelligence could be one of those patterns, fragile but persistent, flickering in and out across eras. Third, deep time shows us responsibility. Our actions today will be tomorrow's record. We're writing in the planet's diary, whether we mean to or not. Knowing this can guide us to act with care, to create conditions that support future life, and to leave clues that tell our story honestly. Finally, deep time shows us hope. We're not alone in facing impermanence. Everything that has ever lived has faced it. Yet here we are, thinking, imagining, wondering. Our curiosity itself is evidence of something enduring, something that can rise again, even after collapse. As we close this section of our video, remember, the point of asking about lost civilizations is not to prove a theory, but to expand our imagination. It's to teach ourselves to see patterns, to hold uncertainty, and to act with humility. It's to become the kind of civilization that, if found millions of years from now, would be recognized not just for its power, but for its care. Whether or not someone came before, we're here now, brief but brilliant. We can choose to be worthy of discovery, to leave behind a planet richer in possibilities than we found it, and to plant seeds of knowledge and stewardship that may outlast us all. As we enter the final arc of our video, let's pull the threads together. We've talked about erasure, subtle traces, stewardship, and imagination. Now it's time to ask what kind of legacy we actually want to leave. One way to think of this is as planetary authorship. Every civilization writes in Earth's diary, whether it intends to or not. Some entries are scars, some are gifts. Knowing this, we can choose to write with intention. We can leave behind resilient ecosystems, stable climates, and durable knowledge instead of only waste and imbalance. Another way is to imagine future discovery. What would we want a distant investigator to infer about us? Would we want to be seen as careless or careful, as extractive or regenerative, as transient or thoughtful? This mental exercise can guide our policies, technologies, and cultural priorities. Deep time also encourages a shift in values, from accumulation to contribution. Instead of measuring success by how much we take, we measure it by how much we nurture. Instead of racing for short-term gains, we plan for long-term resilience. Instead of seeing ourselves as the last word, we see ourselves as one chapter. This isn't about perfection. It's about orientation. No civilization can predict every future, but it can choose the direction of its influence. By integrating deep time thinking into education, governance, and everyday life, we make it more likely that our influence will be constructive rather than destructive. In this way, the question of lost civilizations becomes a blueprint for found responsibilities. It's not just an academic puzzle, it's a call to action. It tells us that everything we do today will echo tomorrow, and that we can decide what kind of echo it will be. In this section, let's imagine how deep time thinking can change our relationship to technology itself. We tend to assume that innovation always means bigger, faster, and more. But deep time suggests another trajectory, smaller, slower, more integrated with nature. Already we see hints of this. Renewable energy mimics natural cycles. Biomimicry takes design cues from ecosystems. Digital systems dematerialize formerly physical processes. An advanced civilization might take this much further, blending seamlessly into its environment until its activities are indistinguishable from natural processes. This also changes our idea of progress. Instead of seeing history as a ladder, we can see it as a web or a spiral, looping back and forth, testing different strategies. Civilizations may peak in visibility early, then fade into quiet sustainability. In geological terms, the quiet phase might last far longer than the noisy one. For our own future, this perspective suggests investing not only in technological growth, but in technological maturity. Systems that self-heal, self-limit, and self-archive. It suggests prioritizing durability, reversibility, and adaptability over sheer scale. It suggests measuring success by harmony, not dominance. Such technologies would leave fewer scars on the planet and might even repair old ones. They would look less like factories and more like ecosystems. Their signature in the rock record might be a stabilization of climate, a diversification of life, or a subtle but sustained anomaly rather than a spike and crash. Deep time teaches us that this kind of progress may be harder to detect, but easier to sustain. And in a universe where intelligence is rare, sustaining it may be the ultimate achievement. We're now at the threshold of our conclusion. Before we close, let's reflect on what this journey has meant. We started with a question about lost civilizations and discovered a guide for building better ones. Deep time showed us impermanence, resilience, and responsibility. It taught us to think beyond our lifetimes, to value stewardship over exploitation, to plan for horizons we will never personally see. It reminded us that intelligence may be fragile, but also renewable, flickering in and out across epochs. This perspective can transform education, policy, and culture. Schools can teach geological time alongside history. Governments can design infrastructure to last centuries. Artists can explore themes of continuity and cycles instead of only novelty and disruption. Citizens can see themselves as part of an unbroken chain of care. It can also transform our sense of identity. We are not just consumers of a moment, but participants in a story billions of years long. We are not isolated but embedded. We are not powerless, but entrusted. That shift can replace despair with responsibility and arrogance with humility. Finally, it can transform our hope. If civilizations can disappear, they can also return. If life can survive cataclysms, it can survive our mistakes. If curiosity can arise once, it can arise again. We may not control the outcome, but we can influence the conditions. As we close this part of our video, remember that the question, could there have been someone before us, is also the question, what kind of someone will we be for those who come after? We can't decide the past, but we can decide the future. And that's a power worth using wisely. We're moving into the final act of our video. In this section, let's reflect on how the question of hidden civilizations has changed us. We began by imagining lost cities under ancient seas, but we've ended up rethinking time, technology, and responsibility. Deep time forced us to confront impermanence. We learned that even the strongest materials erode, the tallest mountains crumble, and the deepest oceans shift. We saw how our own industrial age, impressive as it feels, is a brief spike in a vast record. At the same time, deep time offered resilience. Life has endured mass extinctions, climate swings, and asteroid strikes. Each catastrophe opened niches for new forms. Intelligence itself may be one such form, flickering across eras, reinventing itself after collapse. This double vision, impermanence and resilience, changes how we act. It encourages humility, but not despair. It suggests that what matters is not permanence but possibility, not monuments but methods, not ownership but stewardship. It also suggests a new ethic of design. We can build knowledge systems that survive disruption, ecosystems that recover, and cultures that value long-term thinking. We can plan not only for ourselves, but for whoever comes next, even if we never meet them. Finally, deep time gives us a new story to tell. We are not at the end of history, but in the middle of a cosmic experiment. Our job is to pass the torch of curiosity and care, to leave behind conditions in which intelligence can arise again. As we near our conclusion, let's zoom out once more. What we've been practicing in this video is more than speculation. It's a kind of mental exercise, learning to hold the vastness of time and the fragility of traces in one thought. This exercise strengthens several muscles at once. It strengthens scientific rigor, because we must separate natural anomalies from possible artifacts. It strengthens imagination, because we must picture forms of intelligence very different from our own. It strengthens ethics, because we must ask what kind of ancestors we want to be. It also bridges disciplines. Geology meets astronomy, biology meets philosophy, technology meets storytelling. By integrating them, we create a richer picture of our world and our place in it. This integrated view can transform education. Imagine a curriculum where students learn not only history, but prehistory, not only civic duty, but planetary stewardship, not only science, but the humility to see themselves as part of deep time. It can transform policy. Long-term infrastructure, conservation plans measured in centuries, archives built to last millennia, all become normal when we think this way. It can transform culture. Art, music, and film can explore continuity instead of just novelty, resilience instead of just disruption. Stories can become time bridges, connecting generations, and it can transform personal life. When you see yourself as a temporary but meaningful participant in a billions-year-old story, your values shift. You start to treasure relationships, knowledge, and care more than accumulation. This is the closing chapter of our video. By now, you've traveled with us through billions of years, imagined hidden civilizations, and glimpsed the future through the lens of deep time. Here's what we've learned. Deep time is not just an abyss, it's a context. It reveals impermanence but also resilience. It erases much but preserves patterns. It challenges our vanity but enriches our imagination. We've learned that our civilization is both fragile and powerful. Fragile because it can vanish in a blink of geological time. Powerful because it can alter the planet's chemistry and leave a signature for millions of years. This duality gives us responsibility to minimize harm, to maximize knowledge, to act as good ancestors. We've learned that intelligence may be a recurring phenomenon rather than a singular miracle. If it has happened once, it could happen again, here or elsewhere. That possibility connects us to a cosmic story far bigger than our own. We've learned that speculation, when disciplined, can be a tool for discovery. By asking, could someone have come before? We refine our methods, expand our search, and clarify our priorities. And finally, we've learned that legacy is not about monuments, but about conditions. Not about being remembered, but about leaving behind a world rich in possibility. Not about proving we were first, but about ensuring we're not the last. Thank you for watching this journey with us on Deep Time Mysteries. If this exploration changed how you see the world, share it, subscribe, and join us for future videos. Together, we can keep asking the biggest questions and keep thinking beyond the limits of our own time. As we extend our journey beyond the official ending of our video, let's dive even deeper into the implications of deep time thinking. Up until now, we've focused on Earth and the possibility of lost civilizations. But this mindset can also reshape how we approach technology, culture, and even our sense of purpose. One area where deep time thinking matters is climate restoration. If geological processes take thousands of years to balance carbon or rebuild biodiversity, then every action we take now echoes across vast timescales. Seeing ourselves in that context can inspire policies that prioritize long-term resilience over short-term gains. Another area is knowledge preservation. Imagine archives designed not for decades, but for millennia. Imagine a global memory infrastructure where critical data, from medical knowledge to cultural heritage, is redundantly stored in multiple formats and locations, including off-world vaults. Such projects are not science fiction. They are a natural extension of the deep time mindset. It also transforms how we view risk. We're used to thinking about immediate dangers, but some risks, nuclear waste, climate shifts, biodiversity loss, unfold over centuries or millennia. Managing them responsibly requires institutions that can endure beyond current political cycles, guided by principles rather than personalities. On a personal level, deep time thinking can be calming. It can shrink everyday anxieties while expanding our sense of connection. It can help us see our actions as part of a much larger tapestry, giving meaning to small acts of stewardship and creativity. And on a cultural level, it can produce a renaissance of imagination. Artists, writers, and filmmakers can explore timelines that dwarf human history, helping audiences feel both humility and wonder. This can shift cultural norms away from instant gratification and toward long-term care. By embracing this mindset, we do more than speculate about hidden civilizations. We begin to build a civilization worthy of being remembered. We begin to align our technologies, policies, and stories with the planet's own rhythms, reducing harm and increasing resilience. We become, in effect, co-authors of Earth's next chapter, writing not only for ourselves, but for whoever might come after. As we move further into our extended journey, let's explore how deep time thinking can change our view of cooperation. We often imagine civilizations, ancient or future, as isolated and competing. But the planet's history suggests that survival favors networks, redundancy, and collaboration over solitary dominance. Consider how ecosystems work. Coral reefs, forests, and soil webs all thrive on diversity and mutualism. Each organism fills a niche. The system as a whole becomes more resilient. When one element falters, others adapt and fill the gap. Civilizations might follow the same principle. Those that learn to cooperate across cultures, disciplines, and even species may endure longer than those that rely only on conquest or extraction. This has immediate implications for us. We can design technologies that interlock rather than compete, infrastructures that complement rather than duplicate, and policies that reward resilience rather than fragility. We can treat knowledge itself as a commons, curated and shared across generations, rather than hoarded or privatized. Deep time thinking also reframes conflict. If you see your rival as a brief actor in a long drama, zero-sum competition makes less sense. Collaboration on planetary stewardship, climate stabilization, and knowledge preservation becomes the rational choice. Even small cooperative acts accumulate over millennia. On a cultural level, this perspective encourages a new kind of storytelling. Instead of heroes who conquer and rule, we tell stories of caretakers, restorers, and bridge builders. Instead of endings that celebrate victory, we celebrate continuity. Such stories can inspire behavior just as effectively as myths of conquest once did. And on a personal level, it fosters patience. Big changes may take generations, but deep time shows that steady efforts can reshape entire worlds. Planting a tree or preserving a language may seem small, but across centuries, it can alter ecosystems or cultures. Ultimately, this part of our video suggests that the most enduring legacy of any civilization may be its capacity to cooperate across time, across differences, and across worlds. By embracing this lesson now, we move closer to becoming the kind of civilization we've been imagining all along. One subtle enough to endure and wise enough to care. In this next chapter of our video, let's focus on energy, the invisible heartbeat of every civilization. Whether ancient, modern, or hypothetical, how a society gathers and uses energy determines its footprint, its resilience, and ultimately, its detectability in deep time. We tend to associate progress with ever greater energy consumption. Yet deep time thinking suggests a different trajectory toward efficiency, integration, and balance. A truly advanced society might harvest energy in ways indistinguishable from natural processes, drawing from sunlight, tides, or geothermal gradients without leaving dramatic scars. Its signature in the rock record would be subtle stabilization rather than obvious disruption. This perspective changes how we view our own choices. Fossil fuels inscribe a clear chemical mark on the planet: carbon spikes, altered isotopes, redistributed metals. Renewable sources, by contrast, leave far fainter traces. A civilization that transitions to clean, distributed energy is harder to detect, but also more likely to endure. It also reframes technology. Instead of massive power plants, think microgrids. Instead of visible megastructures, think invisible flows. Instead of short bursts of exploitation, think long arcs of stewardship. Such systems may not satisfy our current desire for spectacle, but they're far more compatible with planetary cycles, and it reframes risk. Concentrated energy systems are vulnerable to disruption. Distributed, resilient systems can ride out shocks. In deep time, the societies that survive may be those that built for adaptability rather than for scale alone. This lesson applies beyond electricity. Food systems, water cycles, information networks, all can be designed to mimic ecosystems with redundancy, feedback loops, and self-correction. These principles reduce our footprint while increasing our longevity. Ultimately, thinking about energy through the lens of deep time invites us to imagine a civilization almost invisible to geology, but unmistakable in its harmony. A civilization whose greatest monument is a stabilized planet, whose greatest signature is continuity. As we head into this next segment of our video, let's explore how deep time thinking reshapes our understanding of culture itself. Civilizations are not just technologies and infrastructures. They are also languages, rituals, and stories. These too leave traces, sometimes more durable than stone. Consider language families. Even when spoken words vanish, patterns persist in descendants. Ancient myths echo across cultures, encoded in symbols, melodies, and archetypes. A future archaeologist might not find our cities, but might still detect mathematical constants, artistic ratios, or universal narratives embedded in whatever medium survives. This suggests that cultural continuity can be as important as material durability. A civilization that invests in stories, education, and symbolic systems may survive conceptually, even if its artifacts disappear. Its ideas could be rediscovered, reinvented, or transmitted indirectly across eras. It also challenges us to think about the information ecology we're creating today. Digital data is fragile, formats become obsolete, servers fail, and archives decay. But concepts, values, and mathematical truths can leap across generations if encoded well. By designing knowledge for redundancy, translation, and universality, we give it a chance to persist in deep time. On a personal level, this perspective can change how we create. Art, music, and writing become not just self-expression, but time bridges. They become our contribution to a collective memory far larger than any one lifespan. On a societal level, it can shift priorities. We can support libraries, language preservation, and open science. We can treat education as a multi-generational project, not just a service for the present. We can build cultural seed banks alongside genetic ones, safeguarding humanity's intangible heritage. And on a planetary level, it reframes the legacy of intelligence. Maybe the real hallmark of an advanced civilization is not a skyscraper or a satellite, but a well-tended archive, a balanced biosphere, and a set of values resilient enough to be reborn after collapse. Ultimately, this part of our video suggests that even if monuments crumble, meaning can endure. By tending to culture as carefully as we tend to technology, we make ourselves more visible across time, not through ruins, but through resonance. We've reached the last stretch of our extended journey. In this section, let's bring all the threads together one more time and ask what it means to live with deep time in mind every day. The first lesson is that perspective changes priorities. When you see your life as one heartbeat in a billion-year story, you start valuing different things: continuity over speed, resilience over spectacle, stewardship over extraction. This shift doesn't erase ambition, it refines it. The second lesson is that permanence is an illusion, but influence is real. We can't guarantee our buildings will last, but we can influence the planet's chemistry, its biodiversity, and its knowledge systems. We can choose whether that influence is constructive or destructive. The third lesson is that legacy is collective. No one person, city, or generation can plan for millions of years. But cultures can build traditions, institutions, and archives that outlast them. This is how values, stories, and discoveries cross epochs. On a practical level, this might mean investing in redundant archives, preserving languages, and designing technology for reversibility and repair. It might mean protecting wilderness, not only for ourselves, but for unknown future beings. It might mean treating every decision as a geological act, leaving a layer that others will someday read. On a cultural level, it can mean telling new kinds of stories. We can shift our narratives from conquest to care, from dominance to continuity, from endings to cycles. These stories become mental infrastructure, shaping behavior as much as laws or markets. And on a personal level, it can mean a new form of meaning. Even small acts, planting a tree, mentoring a student, recording an oral history, become contributions to a tapestry that stretches far beyond our lifetimes. They are seeds of future possibility, planted in the soil of time. Ultimately, this final part of our video reminds us that the question, "Could there have been someone before us?" is also the question, "What will we be to those who come after?" We can't know the past with certainty, but we can shape the future with intention. We can become not just a civilization, but a good ancestor, subtle enough to endure, wise enough to care, and imaginative enough to leave behind more than ruins. Thank you for staying with us through this entire exploration on Deep Time Mysteries. If you've enjoyed this journey, don't forget to subscribe, share, and keep wondering. Together we can build a community that thinks beyond the limits of our own time and imagines futures worthy of discovery. Before we close completely, let's pause and reflect on the journey you and I have taken across these videos. We began with a simple curiosity about hidden civilizations and found ourselves confronting deep time, planetary stewardship, and our own place in the cosmos. This penultimate section is about gratitude and vision. First, gratitude. For all its upheavals and erasures, Earth has given us a moment of awareness, a window into its vast history. We can read its rocks, oceans, and skies. We can build models that stretch backward, billions of years, and forward into the future. This capacity is rare and precious, a form of planetary self-awareness. Second, vision. The question, could someone have come before us, trains us to look outward and inward simultaneously. Outward, to search for traces, refine our tools, and imagine alien minds. Inward, to recognize our own impermanence, refine our values, and imagine our legacy. This double gaze can unify seemingly opposing drives: science and spirituality, analysis and wonder, skepticism and imagination. It can help us build a culture where deep time is normal, where responsibility to future beings is as obvious as responsibility to our children, where curiosity about the past fuels care for the present. It can also help us navigate uncertainty. We don't need perfect answers to act wisely. We can accept ambiguity while still working to preserve knowledge, biodiversity, and possibility. We can recognize that our efforts may fail, but still choose to make them. Because in deep time, even small gestures accumulate into vast effects, and it can remind us to stay humble and hopeful. Humble, because we're temporary. Hopeful, because patterns recur, life endures, and intelligence may rise again. This perspective doesn't diminish us. It situates us in a grander narrative. This is our true finale, the closing words of this entire deep time exploration. In this last section, let's weave together everything we've learned into a single invitation. We've learned that deep time erases, but also preserves, hides, but also reveals. We've learned that intelligence is fragile, but renewable, fleeting, but powerful. We've learned that our actions are geological acts, writing in the planet's diary, whether we intend to or not. We've learned that legacy is not about monuments, but about conditions. Not about being remembered, but about leaving behind a world rich in possibility. Not about proving we were first, but about ensuring we're not the last. And we've learned that curiosity itself is a bridge across time. By asking big questions, we connect with minds long gone and minds yet to come. We become part of a lineage of wonder, stretching across epochs and perhaps across worlds. So here's the invitation. Think in deep time. Live as though your choices matter, not just today, but for millennia. Create as though someone will read your layer millions of years from now. Steward as though the planet itself is your audience. Imagine as though intelligence will rise again and find your signal. By doing this, you transform the question, could there have been someone before us, into a compass for your own life. You move from speculation to participation, from mystery to meaning, from being a consumer of the planet to being its caretaker and co-author. Thank you for traveling through this immense story with us on Journey Through Time. If you've found value here, share this video, subscribe, and keep exploring. Together we can build a community that not only asks the biggest questions, but also acts on their answers, leaving behind not only a trace, but a gift for whoever comes next.